Hey everyone, welcome back. This is part 2 of editing with me. The model I'm using is KatKat, and so far what we've done is we've removed the green. I took this image on a green screen and we've removed the green, so now we have a transparent background. In this video I'm going to be creating some shadows. So I need to think where my light source is going to be coming from. Usually what I do is I go with the flow wherever. I might have one particular idea for a shoot but then end up going a completely different direction. So I'm thinking maybe the light source will come from here, so then there'll be a bit of a shadow here, there'll be some shadow here, and then there'll be some shadow here. This side will be lighter, this side will be darker. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work on shadows now. Now to do that, first I do is I create a copy, and then using the lasso tools, right click, use a polygonal lasso tool, and then I zoom in. So I'm going to start doing their chin first. So what I'm going to do is create a shadow that falls underneath the chin. So to do that, using the lasso tool, I will start to select the area where I want the shadow to be placed. There are other ways of selecting. You can use like the pen tool, for example, to do this part, but I'm not as experienced on the pen tool. To be totally honest with you, I don't understand it at all. I've tried multiple times. I've seen a few amazing artists use the pen tool to do strands of hair, but I've tried it, I've practiced it, and I don't understand it. So if any of you listening or watching have a simple way to explain it to me, that'd be great. And people have tried as well, so maybe it's just something that I just have to practice and try and figure out. So you can see I'm just following the neckline. I want to go as up to where it meets the hair, and then I'm just going to come down, just create an area. It doesn't have to be this big, but I like to work in a big space. And now what I'm doing is I'm just bringing it back to the original point. I've noticed there's some green left here, so I have to clean that. And now just go back and rejoin the selection. So here what you see is I've just created a selection. So now anything that I work on is only going to impact this area. So for example, if I get a ink, nothing will go there, but it will go in this bit. So that's the great thing about selection tools. So you can just focus on the area and not impact any of the area outside of it. Okay, so to create a shadow, it's a method I learned quite a while ago, but over time I've just practiced. Creating shadows and things you can always do in world when taking a shot, like using lighting, light boxes, using specific wind lights to create shadows, and it's a more simple way to do things. Me personally, I love Photoshop. I probably love editing more than I do actually taking the picture. because I can create something that could be really cool. Let me just go back a step and explain what I've done. So what I've done here is I've chose a paintbrush. I've made it really soft, the softest, so you can see hardness is at 0%, the opacity is at 20%, so it's quite a large brush. So I'm going to paint over here where I think like a shadow would be, right? So I've done it in one stroke going up. Now I'm going to decrease the size but keep the opacity the same, and then paint over it again. Reason for that is so that there's like a gradual blend. The closer it gets to the neckline, the darker it becomes. Okay, so you can kind of see it kind of forming. And I'll do it again one more time. Make it a bit smaller, and then just draw, and then this time just keeping it close to the neckline. So let me just take away the selection tool so you can see what I'm doing. So I've created this kind of blend gradient shading underneath the chin. Okay, let me bring back the selection. Now I'm going to use the eraser tool. Softness is at 0, opacity is at 100%. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to erase away areas which I've cleaned. But I'm not going too close to the edge because obviously I want to keep some of the shading, you know, but I want it to be like a light shadow, and I can always see how it looks. So that's before, this is after. Straight away adds a bit of depth, yeah. But I do need to clean up some parts. Say here, because you've got, say, this line. That's that area done. Now, before I do anything else, I'll go back to reselect, and then with the smudge tool, I just smudge the shading that I did just right up to the chin line, just so that there isn't any dead what's it called, empty pixels, because I hand selected this line, and sometimes there's some pixels that's not shaded in correctly. And then I'm going to go to inverse, so select inverse. Now what inverse means is everything outside of this initial selection is now selected. So as was before, I couldn't paint on this area. Now I can't paint on this area, but I can on this area. See that? So now everything outside of this area I can paint on. So that's the inverse. So let me go back to smudge. Again, it's probably something that you really don't need to do, but with my methods of allows me to sleep easy at night. My ACD keeps me up. But what it also does, and I'll show you this in a sec, is it kind of smoothens the neckline as well. I need to go up as far as that. So let's have a look. So what I was trying to do there, see like these areas here, where it's like darker, let's get rid of that. But because the selection tool was done like, I manually selected, I'm not going to follow the line of the neck, of the chin perfectly. So there are going to be certain places, but that's okay because that's why we have the blur tool. This is the final step when creating a shadow. What I do is I kind of like blur this area here. It's quite a high setting actually. Let me go back, delete that blur. It's quite high. Bring it down to strength to about 50 because I still want to keep the crisp lines where the chin and the neck overlap. It's really weird for me because usually when I'm editing I'll have my music on and I'll be zoned out, so actually talking and explaining the process as I'm doing it, it's kind of weird. It's like I'm talking to myself right now, which is really weird. So that's me creating a shadow underneath, and I'm actually quite impressed with that. So let me just show the before. That's what it looked like. This is after. Now I'm going to take away this layer and you see what I've done. So I created this selection, and then see this mark here, that's the shading that I used, and then I erased everything. So the shading, I remember I did quite a bit, but then I erased and only kept the areas I wanted, and then I blurred the line after smudging it just to make it clean. So now that's done. This is why you need a second layer, because if you just did it on the main layer, whatever you erase, if there's nothing behind it, it's going to be empty. So that's why you need to make a copy layer. So that's that done. Before I merge down, I want to create some shading here, but I have to check, because if I had to do some shading here, if I had erased any part of this area, I wouldn't be able to work on shading this area, because it would there'll be nothing for me to work on. So I would have to create a new layer and start again. Like what I would probably have to do on this side. So yeah, I'm gonna create a shadow coming along here. Okay, so actually let me just merge this one down and then create a new layer, just in case I do go over that area. So create a copy layer, right. So using the selection tool, I usually start up here, even though typically I won't shade the top area. And you see like how, let's start again, see like how it kind of fades out here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to actually include this part into the selection area. Because in otherwise there'll be a shaded area, then there'll be like a faint hair area which underneath it will have a lighter skin tone than the area that I've just shaded. So that's why I'm including that part. Now here I'm going to follow this part of the hairline, like these strands, and try and imagine where the light will be hitting and where a shadow will have cast would cast onto the face. Sometimes it's just pure guesswork. Sometimes I'll do it in completely the wrong areas that would probably go against the laws of physics, science, but you can kind of guess. Okay, so you see this is the area that I've selected. Now with the paintbrush, opacity at 20%, with a black brush, I'm now going to just paint over this area. I like to do it in one stroke, because otherwise if I go down and then do another stroke, the overlapping stroke will be darker, you know. So I'm going to try and do it all in one stroke. So just coming down there, and then I'm going to decrease the size of the brush but keep the opacity the same, and just go down again. And then one more time. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. So I'll take away the lines, and you see as before, as after. So you can see there's a bit of shadow, and it just gets a bit darker here. Okay, let me get that selection tool back up. Choose the eraser. Make it soft, and then just start to erase. See, I don't think there'll be much of a shadow here. Whilst I'm doing this, I just want to apologise if my voice sounds a bit croaky at the moment. I haven't just woken up. I do actually have a bit of a sore throat. I've been coughing my guts out. But just before I started this video, I had a lemsip. If some of you guys don't know what a lemsip is, it's like a lemon honey drink with a bit of paracetamol in it. I don't usually do meds, but coughing wasn't so great and it was starting to hurt a bit. But I'm doing alright now. Okay, so I've erased parts of the shading that I just done to try and capture, just try and leave where I believe there'll be a shadow casting if the light source is coming from this direction. So let's have a look. Okay. Okay. So far I'm happy with that. Right. What I want to do, see the selection tool that I used kind of made this quite rigidy. So with the blur tool, I'm just going to paint over that line. Just to make it a bit softer. Just come down. You can probably see there's a bit of green here. I need to fix from the green screen, which I'll do later on. Okay. So, you can see there's an issue here, right? We've got a bit of shading which darkens the skin tone here, but you see there's a gap there, right? And it's lighter, so naturally this would be darker, right? Like kind of blends in, but it wasn't part of my selection. So I need to figure out a way to darken that to a similar tone to this. A lot of stuff that I do in Photoshop is just trial and error, guesswork, using tools that I would use for something else, but kind of works. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to create a new layer. So the opacity that I used was at 25%, right? So I'm just going to paint on this layer over that area, and then with the eraser tool, I guess what I could have done, actually I am actually gonna do that. So what I can do instead, use my selection tool, doesn't have to be perfect on this particular thing because it won't, because it's going to be a light black, it's kind of going to be blending, like with a low opacity it's going to be blending, but what I want to do is get the skin tone to look more like this. So what I've done is I've selected the area again, like I said, on a separate layer, and then I'm just going to paint over it. So that kind of brings it a bit closer. This area would have less light, so I'm thinking going over it one more time, and then we'll see. And the good thing about doing it on another layer is I can reduce the opacity if I need to, which I might. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And then what I'm going to do is with the blur tool, just go over it. So now it kind of looks like what it should look like naturally, right? I'm guessing. Yeah. So then I'll merge that down to make it part of this layer, and now you can see what I've just done, creating that shadow. Now what I'm going to do is with that, because this area hasn't been worked on, you can see that I've only worked on this area, right? So this area hasn't been worked on, so I don't need to create a new layer. I can just work on this area, because every time you put on another layer, you're multiplying, like especially around the hair where it's faint, you're just multiplying it. So all I'm going to do is work on the same area. So now I'm going to create shading on this side. I think it's going to be like a bit of a shadow that comes along here. Maybe comes along here. Yeah, so I'm going to do, so there won't be much here, but more come along here. So yeah, that's what I'll do. Okay. So again, with the lasso tool, this is the polygonal. I keep wanting to say polyagonal, but it's not actually polyagonal, it's polygonal. Lasso tool. This is really poor at the moment because I know I'm not hitting the lines of the hair as it meets the face, but it's okay. It's not because my OCD will kick into gear and I'll probably want to redo it again, but we'll see how it looks after I've done it. I hope if you guys find my commentary entertaining. I mean, I just realised that I have to follow the hairline as opposed to go down along the side of the face, otherwise I won't be able to cast the shadow on this area. Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, I hope you guys don't mind my commentary. It is, like I said, really weird to be editing and talking, because like at the moment it feels like I'm just talking to myself, and that's one of the signs of madness, right? I went mad a long time ago. It's okay to be a bit crazy, right? Okay, so I've selected this area here. So there's not going to be much shadow on this area, but there will be in this area. So I'm going to select my paintbrush, pass it at 25%, size of the brush. So I don't know whether you guys do this in terms of changing your brush size. I know you can right click and then you can go through size this way, but if you press your Alt or Option key if you're using a Mac and then right click on your mouse, you can, if you go to the left or to the right, left, so right, makes your brush bigger, size of the brush bigger, left makes it smaller. But also if you go up, it softens the brush, if you go down, it hardens the brush. So that's hard, that's soft, that's big, that's small. So this tool is so handy because it kind of like doesn't stunt or slow your workflow, because if you have to keep like constantly changing your brush size because of the image you're working on, and constantly having to go to the menu can be quite a drag. So what I'm doing is I'm just going over where I think there might be shadow. I think I've overdone that, I'm not happy with that. So I'll make a bigger brush size this time, but not casting too much of an area here, but come in bigger here. That makes sense. So it's light there, but then coming down and more coming over the face. So I'm going to do it again, but with a smaller size. And then again one more time. I think it's a bit too much if the light's coming from this side, right? Yeah, I don't need this the third time. I think 2's enough. Okay, so now to clean it up with the eraser tool. You see it's quite hard, so I'll make it soft. And then I didn't really paint much here, but I will start from up here. You see like how I don't really erase too much. Well, I want there to be shadow. The thing about this eraser tool when you do it on a soft brush is that it erases outwards softly. Let me give you an example. Let me just create a new layer. Okay. So with the eraser tool, you see the circle. Everything within the circle is the area that's going to erase primarily, but on the outside of the circle you see how it's red, so it's still going to get bits outside, so it's kind of like bleed out. So if let's do it on the face actually. So you see like I only erased, but it kind of bleeds out. So when I'm erasing this part, I'm not going exactly to the areas I want to erase. I'm just outside because I know that the eraser tool, that it bleeds out, and I'm capturing bits outside of the actual circle itself. I don't know if that example made any sense. It made sense to me, so hopefully it did to you. Okay, so that's the shadow that I've created. So now I'm thinking the light source is going to come from above, maybe. Okay, last part to do is blur this area here. So get my blur tool, and then I'll just go over. Okay, so this is the part that where the smudging works. Right, so like how before I did a bit of smudging, but I didn't do it this time because there's some parts where I missed because of my selection wasn't accurate. So I just reselect my selection tool, and then what I'll do is I'm going to smudge this part towards the crawling ants, this line here, because that's where the bits are missing. So remember to work on the area outside of your selection, you choose the inverse. So now everything outside is now workable. Go to my smudge tool, and then I smudge, but in the flow of the hair. So I'm coming downwards as opposed to like going across. There. Control D to take away the selection. Yeah, it's looking a bit better. Reselect. Now I'm going to go to inverse again, so I'm now working on this area, And then I'm just going to push out those black lines that we saw. So smudge out, should I say. So now, just smudging out. These lines here. Try not to take much of the eyelash, sorry. Excuse me. Inverse again because I want to work on the outside part. Okay, so let's clean that up a bit. Then go back to the blur tool, and I'm just going to blur this area so it looks a bit more natural, because obviously when using the selection tool and then making those lines, it kind of makes the lines quite rigid. So this is what we've done. So that's before, that's after. So we created a shadow here, created a bit of shading here, and on this side here as well. I'm happy with that. Hopefully you are too, and hopefully I explained it pretty simple on how I create shading. I use a selection tool called polygonal lasso tool. Select the areas. I then use a paintbrush using black at a low opacity, usually 25%. Start off with a large brush, a soft one. Paint the areas where I think there's going to be shadow, and then decrease the brush, the size of the brush, and then paint over it again, and do it as many times as you think. The more times you do it, the darker it will become, and the stronger the shadow. Then using the eraser tool, you kind of clean it up, and just focuses the areas that you shade and kind of shape it to how you want the shadow to look. Then clean up would involve maybe using a smudge tool and the blur tool, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so that's this part of the video, how I create shadows in Photoshop. I hope you found that helpful. Please do try it yourself if it's something you want to do, and if you do, be sure to tag me in those pictures and show me what you've done. I would love to see. Okay, next video, next part, I'll be working on the curves adjustment tool, where I'm going to be creating light areas and dark areas to add more depth to the image. So that's going to be part 3. Okay, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.